Alina, welcome back to my Diversity and Inclusion Q&A initiative for part 2. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you today about diversity and inclusion topics.
Thanks a lot, Ali. That's one of the topics I do want to talk about.
It's such an important topic and incredibly important we keep having these conversations. From your perspective, what do you feel are the benefits of actually having diversity in the workplace? And of course, that comes in every form, not just gender, age, ethnicity, educational background.
It's very good to have different people around the table in terms of sharing their ideas. Because what I found from working with different teams and stakeholders is it's very hard to have one person who's always right. And to get to the right answer, you need to ask or work together as part of the team to come up with an answer. I do want to say that in the example which I used to have maybe in the past, I used to work in PwC Russia, and there aren't very many foreigners in Russia in terms of workforce. So it would all be like Russian people, I guess, from different parts of Russia, from different backgrounds, but still kind of Russian people. And when I came to the UK, it's much more broader in terms of all the different countries, the continents, the cultures, etc. So sometimes when it's not just, the work which you do, even when you have a chit chat, you learn quite a lot from the people you are surrounded with, and you come and talk about different topics which may inspire you, may make you laugh, may make you smile or cry or whatever, but it is quite a different dynamics.
What have you seen the negative impact to be on an environment that does lack any form of diversity?
It's going to be one-sided potentially, right? I think you could still make decisions, but perhaps they will be covering kind of one angle. So, and again, this is not just women and men, this can be different, cultures, etc. What I found is coming from different backgrounds, you would have different experiences. And in particular, if you work as I do with clients and customers, you would have different types of stakeholders and different types of, customer journeys, user journeys. So the more you come from different angles, the better end-to-end picture you're going to get. And probably you're not going to get it just by doing one-sided point of view. And you will lose in terms of the business if you are like a corporate or a company, but you would also lose on a personal, motivational agenda as well.
Looking at your own experience as well, relocating from Russia, coming to London, I know you said that culturally, naturally, it's a little bit different, and there are more nationalities in the UK. But how does the diversity balance look within your tech teams?
If I compare it today versus what it was 6 years when I started my journey, it has been getting better and better, I would say. Obviously, I moved between companies, but I think it's a same challenge between the companies. So if I start about 6 years ago when I joined, we had a start group of 100 analysts, which are just the junior resources. And I was the only non-British person on that list of people. We did have people of different cultures and backgrounds, but they were all British. So when I joined, I looked different, I walk different, I talk different, and it really stood out. It stood out, I guess, for me in terms of trying to talk to other people, but it also stood out to other people as well. So it seemed a bit of a curiosity. Now, today, I would say we are very good in terms of trying or even getting the gender balance well. In particular, when it's more junior ranks, I would say that maybe at senior director management it's still on the path, but actually KPMG is one of the first companies to have equal number of women versus men on the board.
Really refreshing to see that you have a strong split of diversity in terms of gender on the board. How do you think that's actually been achieved by KPMG? Because there are so many organizations out there at the moment that are really struggling.
So I don't want to talk on behalf of KPMG, but I'm going to say my own opinion.
Sure.
For this. I personally think that there is a lot of attention given to the hiring process, because there is an element that they specifically have targets to hire women into senior roles. And what I find right now in the market, right, as I'm a woman and I'm doing cloud and I'm doing technology and I'm in a fairly senior role, there is a lot of demand because every company wants to have these women, and there are not enough women for all these roles which they want to fill in if they are all equal and diverse. There are certain targets in promotion as well. So what I've been seeing is it's equal per level, including the partner level, which is the senior level in KPMG. So you would have one guy, one girl. They are working on the ethnicity, right? I definitely know there is work being done. I'm just maybe not so close to the exact, margins and targets, etc. You may have heard, but our CEO now is a lady, and she's actually of an Indian origin. So that's the first woman CEO in KPMG in 150 years of the history.
It's great to see that. And from your journey being in London, what other initiatives have you seen running to promote diversity and inclusion in some of the organizations?
One of the programs I'm on at the moment is called Raise You. And Raise You is an initiative run by KPMG, which is targeted at high-performing, high-potential women. So I would have a coach and I would have sessions, I think, quarterly, and some group sessions, group lessons, group breakfast, etc., to see the audience of other women who are also high-performing and to have this network. Last year, we had a pilot on it. This year, it's official. So we have 40 women going through this. I think the number could, gradually rise and improve, and I think that would have been good. But the initiative is there.
What benefits have you seen so far from being involved in it?
I like the fact that there is a coach for me. I think it helps with the confidence, generally speaking. But I do want to say that maybe I have a slightly different point of view from some of my colleagues. I do think that we need to come to the society and community where we don't have to talk so much about women diversity. Like, it is just there, it is already embedded, so that both women and men and everyone else feels as part of the same community. I think now sometimes what I find is we talk so much about women perhaps in leadership roles, right? And we talk about it because there are not sufficient number of women in leadership roles, but sometimes we forget about those, white British males who also want to be part of this community, right? And I've seen in some organizations that there are, the male agents for diversity, which I found quite good. I do think that it is important, instead of having this perhaps separate group of women who separately become high performing, to have it part of the end-to-end community, so that there is no challenge in the end that men feel left out.
Yeah, certainly. For me, like, the end goal is being in an environment where we don't have to have the conversation about we need more diversity, we need to do this, we need to do that. It should just be given, and it's very organic and natural, and the diversity is there. So giving everyone a fair chance is so important. And the initiative you mentioned, of course, it's great that it's amplifying the voices of women, but it is important we keep that inclusiveness across the board. Looking at your career and, of course, being a woman in this industry, what adversity would you say you have faced?
My first challenge when I was growing up, as I mentioned in the other interviews, I didn't really have a role model of a woman in front of me. And those were not just the people who I personally knew, but even on television, on the at the time, maybe internet wasn't so developed, but I haven't actually seen this topic raised so much. So I would not have been confident myself if I want to go and work and become successful. What is it I need to do? And also, can I even do it? Because I haven't seen anyone, do it.
Yeah.
So that was number one challenge. Number two challenge is I try different things, and some things kind of helped and some things maybe haven't helped. I can't say that I felt out of place because I'm a woman, even though I do technology. One of the reasons for it is I was at school and I was at uni, and there were always less women than men. I think it was the ratio of 10 to 1, which is even, I guess, higher than it is in UK. So I don't have a challenge in working with men. But what I had a challenge from the diversity perspective was when I did come to the UK and I didn't really fit in. And I think what would have helped me at the time is having the awareness of the line managers who perhaps have never seen Russian people, that when you have a person who may be different, just thinking from their perspective of how they could possibly try to either adapt their behavior or maybe try to be helpful, or maybe just try not to ask constant questions around Russian beers and vodka, which are perhaps prejudices based on movies. So that was like my second challenge. The third challenge was I usually work with quite senior people. So I would say that they would be managing directors of banks. So usually they are more senior, more older, perhaps more wiser, but they, in the start of my journey, perhaps they didn't necessarily see me as serious, right? I guess in the job, which I did. I think now I don't have such a challenge because I grew quite fast and I'm still young and I am a senior manager. But I think at the time when I was an analyst, a consultant in a more junior role, it didn't feel that they would always take me seriously, I guess. And that in a way affected my confidence in a way.
Looking at your career, where you're at right now, what do you think is the best part about being a woman in the tech industry?
There are not so many women in tech industry. I wouldn't say that's the best part, but in a way I do get an opportunity to be a role model and to be a mentor. I feel really honored that people reach out to me more now on LinkedIn and wider networks asking for advice and kind of sharing their information, their challenges. So I really appreciate it. I think not everybody gets to experience this, but it helps me. It helps me share my experience, but at the same time, understand the other people as well. What is it I didn't think about in the past, which would be beneficial for me, for the team, and well, for wider audience.
With that in mind, then, what would be your advice to anyone or women trying to get into the technology, into the business space right now?
Try to first of all understand whether this is what you want to do. And I guess the question would be you'll have to try to figure it out because it's quite hard just to read about it and think that I'll do it or I won't do it. I think if you are interested, right, try to find the mentors, or maybe it doesn't have to be one to one, but one to one would be great. It could be listening to different women. They don't have to be women, it can be men, different diversities, or anyone who you think has kind of a good outcome on you, just to understand if this is what you really want, if this is what you expect. I do want to share my example. So I remember when I went to some career fairs, there were women and men, and they were talking about work. And a lot of them worked in investment banking. And I used to think about in my brain, I want to do investment banking because investment banking pays a lot of money and I want to get all that money. But then I was going to those career fairs, listening to people, and it felt like they aren't really enjoying it, even though they do say out loud that yes, that's the best place to be in, because that's what you do in career fairs. And I guess the fact, this kind of honest vision of somebody who has done it before, may give you a perspective whether you really want to do it longer term or you want to do it, shorter term because you want to try it out, or maybe you don't want to do it at all. So that was kind of my experience. I think there is a very good space right now for women in tech because there is a lot of interest from different organizations. There are different topics and forums and sessions. And there is a bit of, targets which companies have in terms of hiring women into technology and helping them maybe throughout some coaching or learning. So I think it's a good place to be in. I think it's just whether you want to do it, really.
If you're starting out in your career, what are the soft skills that you can work on that will really add value to you in the long run?
number one, it's the ability to network. That would help. I would say it's whether you work in technology or you work in any other area, it's the ability to be proactive, to identify the people that perhaps you want to speak to, identifying why you want to speak to them, and ultimately reaching out, having a coffee, and not being afraid of, coming across as not too experienced or coming across as maybe, I don't know, not too advanced in some particular topic. What I found is many senior people do want to meet you, and they do want to spend time on it. They may have a very busy schedule, but I've seen people make time for the graduates, the junior people, to specifically help them on the journey, and I found it quite valuable. I think another thing is, I wouldn't say it's a soft skills, but it's a little bit with the confidence. I think what is quite important is to have in your mind that, to be honest, you could be whatever you want to be. And the fact that you're talking to a managing director or, I don't know, a partner, it doesn't mean that you are at two different, levels. It's more like all of us are people and we have the same challenges. And I'm sure that partners had this challenge some time ago around the confidence. So just having this in mind, that others don't really have superpowers, and understanding that just like them, you will be successful. You just need to figure out, here are, 5 things you need to do. So that is probably number 2. And number 3, which I found good, but it depends, I guess, on your journey. I found that sometimes technical people, they want to do, for example, coding, and they're happy to do it 24 hours a day, but they forget about the normal kind of purpose of why they're doing it. So I would say the soft skills is going to be looking broader in terms of what is it you are trying to achieve with this solution? What is the benefit that the business or the client or the customer is going to get? Because we all do this for a purpose of making the world better, quicker and faster, and many other things. But I guess it's more having this in your mind and being ready to be quite broad in taking on different feedback, and also understanding the business broader than just a specific task, which may be coding one part of something.
That's great to get an insight into that, Alina. And also, I think, especially when you're starting out in your career, is not to be so hard on yourself. I think it's good to have ambition, be motivated, and again, want to achieve greatness, but understanding that it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, right? And it's okay to fail, just learn from it and move forward.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, and I actually think, and I'll share this with the audience, when I joined technology, I was like in the middle, let's say. So we have certain ratings from 1 to 5, and 1 is the best and 5 is the worst. So when I joined, I was 3, because usually what happens with graduates, you automatically get a 3 unless you have any challenges, right? And then I really wanted to be like promoted and get a 1 ultimately. But for different circumstances, I got a 4, which wasn't very good. And I was very disappointed, but I think it gave a very big kick into my career, because I started thinking broader, not just how do I become a 1, but how do I go to next level and next level and next level. And this has definitely energized me in some way, in terms of moving quicker and faster.
So why do you feel there is still such a lack of women in technology?
I do want to say that we are on a journey, right? Because the whole attention to women in technology, women in leadership has been growing and growing over the last few years, but perhaps not enough attention was given to it, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, right? I think that it is important to have the pool of candidates, right, who can, do the job and at the same time be a woman, and at the same time wanting to do this job. And I think sometimes what I find is, maybe there are women and maybe there are jobs, but maybe women don't necessarily want to do technology because they may feel, I don't know, it's something coding, or it's something completely technical, or it's, I used to think that technology is like a back office and you just sit and, I don't know, nobody sees you and you sit in a dark room and you code. Whereas in my case, I talk to very senior clients, I travel around the world, and it's turned out to be quite different from what I imagined. But I wouldn't have found it out until I actually would have found a job in technology.
Yeah. It's breaking those stereotypes, I think, that are still out there. Of course, it's
Mm.
really changing. How else do you think we can try to break down those stereotypes?
We obviously have like a Gen Z generation, so the young people who are growing up. And it's just having more of these examples of, the types of roles you could have done and the diversity around them. Because I think the educational piece for me, in my mind, is the most important.
Mm.
I do want to highlight that when I was joining Accenture, which was my first company in technology, I thought I'm going to be a data scientist working on innovative robots, which are going to be, I don't know, intellect, artificial intelligence, and they'll be flying into the space. That's how I imagined my job. But then when I turned up the first day, I was actually told that I'm going to do a PMO. So PMO is more like a support for the senior people in terms of drafting the packs and stuff like that, right? And maybe I didn't really like it at the time, but it did give me quite different point of view and a quite different skill set from what I was used to. And I had to work more on my softer skills, which I wasn't expecting to do if I was putting everything into space, at least. That wasn't my expectation.
So it's giving people more of an insight into the world of technology at an earlier
Mhm.
stage, right? So maybe
Yeah.
through internships.
I do want to say that as companies as well, and I don't know about every single company, but we could have more of internships and placements and insights day. Because, for example, I was recently I was being asked by one of the contacts whether we do internships in advanced analytics, and I found out that we don't do internships in advanced analytics, and I was quite surprised because I thought we do, but apparently, um, nobody disagreed with the fact that it's good to have, but it wasn't, part of the process so
Mm.
far.
It's a really important one because it will have such a positive impact. Maybe some people will go there and it's not for them. And again,
Mm.
it's okay. We're not forcing technology that this is the career you need to take. Finally, Alina, as a manager, a senior manager, how can you promote an inclusive culture and environment within your teams?
One of the things which helped me actually become more successful with my teams is my own personal experience of feeling out of place 6 years ago when I started my journey. And I think that experience has taught me to be more attentive, I guess, to other people, whatever their background is. I find sometimes, and I've been speaking to a few people who used to be my line managers, 6 years ago, they haven't even thought that people like me may be experiencing that they're out of place. And I think it's being attentive to the people you have and just trying to think a little bit wider than just from the point of view of a project. Like, here is a list of 20 things you need to do, go and do it. I think what I try to do, I try to understand, or at least I definitely ask the personal objectives of what the person wants. I find sometimes junior people are a little bit hesitant to say their real personal objectives. So I would encourage people to think about it and, to say it out loud, because sometimes it's a little bit hard to find out what you want unless you say what you want. But for me, one of the key things was listening to those objectives or whatever the person has to say, and then just trying to think it through my experience of what I may have wanted other people to do differently when I was a minority. And I think, like, as I said, when I was 6 years ago in the UK, I was genuinely really depressed throughout the first year. And
Mm.
it wasn't just because of my job specifically, but it was a number of things that on a cultural level, I was kind of alone in a new country and I didn't know anybody. And I kind of tried to find houses, but I was constantly moving houses, etc. But that experience has definitely taught me to look a little bit broader at diversity than perhaps I've been thinking about it before.
I'm so pleased to hear that where you're at now in your career and where you're at
Mm,
now in terms of settled into London, because it is hard going to a new area, not knowing anyone. And I think it's a real credit to you, the hard work and resilience you've put in to get to where you are. It's been so great speaking with you today on
mm.
diversity and inclusion topics. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
If you want to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to me. And I think Ali may leave my, I guess, contacts,
Yeah.
LinkedIn and stuff. So I would be happy to either mentor you or just generally help if you think that's helpful to you.
So get in touch with Alina. She's happy to hear from you. And also feel free to reach out to me if there's anything that I can do to help. Thank you so much, Alina. It is a real pleasure.
Thanks a lot.